Welcome back to the Bumper Breakfast. We had to take that abrupt break, but I'm just happy. You know why?
I don't know. Tell me.
Some people will enter the register. They're doing bad things.
Yes.
Punishment is good. Punishment, very good. But let's talk about the mental health of an abused child. How exactly do you think it feels when a child, let's take in that case for example, a child was involved in that video, and other children, the difference is there are many children, but some are of one sex, and the other was just one for the other sex. These children have a particular state of mind, which Auntie Wemmy was able to identify 2 weeks ago. But yet, we have contributed to their health, we have contributed to their minds, we have also we've made them into victims, as a matter of fact. They're supposed to be survivors. But now survivors of an act, they are now victims of the society. How does this affect what happens up here?
Okay, thank you very much. Looking at this situation, I'll also like to spread it wider.
Yes.
Because when you talk about an abused child, we could look at it as sexually abused, physically,
mentally,
emotionally, and all of that. But what we're narrowing down, to is abuse. When it comes to abusing children around here, we are very, 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 what word do I use? We as adults around here, we're usually not fair on children. For example.
So you're saying that adults around here are prone to abusing children? One form of abuse.
One form.
Whether it's psychological, physical, emotional, mental.
A lot of people do not understand that a child doesn't have a capacity to misbehave, as it were, without an influence, without a broken wall, without the impact of the environment, of an adult, of a culture that the child has imbibed. So when you discover that a child was the sexual abuse stuff, then you are not supposed to pick a cane and begin to
strike such a child.
The child. And that's not the solution. But the natural, the impulse, the action from a natural parent is you want to hit that child. You are not helping. And you're not going to get any further with the situation as far as that child is concerned. So when you're talking about the mental health of an abused child, you need to first understand ask the question, where is this coming from? Where is this coming from? Not you have become a slut. You have become, and then you begin to name tag the child. At the end of the day, we are going to be complicating the mental health of the child. And a whole lot of times, people don't know that abuse is not just about the act meted at the child. That's the action of the abuse. Okay? But the occurrence now comes when you keep flogging, when you keep insulting, when you keep naming the act that the child got involved in, upon the child. When you are not able to separate the true identity of a child away from the act that the child got involved in. Now, let me tell you something. Most of the issues we are having today, stemmed from childhood experiences. So one of the things we should be considering is the mental health of every abused child should be the first thing we need to salvage. A lot of people say we want justice, I say justice is okay. But let's first remedy the mental health of this child. Then we look in the direction of fighting, for a cause that needs to be fixed via the justice route, basically.
So basically, I want us to establish, first of all, who are the ones that are prone mostly to abusing children. And let's break it down all kinds of abuse now. You said adults.
Yeah, most adults, because a lot of people lack the understanding of how to deal with a child. Okay, you're dealing with the brain development of a child. If you have the understanding, you will understand that there is a particular stage where the child gets to, that the child soaks in everything you do, you say, they see. Okay, now there's a particular stage the child gets to where all that the child has taken in through your influence, through environment, through the world, becomes what they give back to you in their character. So people are ignorant. You don't look at things from the garbage in. You begin to attack the child from the garbage out. A child doesn't have the ability to give out anything if the child has not taken it in.
First of all.
So we need to look inward. Okay. So if a child displays sexual behavior, okay, look inward. Fine, we know the environment is saturated with all manners of stuff here and there and all of
materials.
That. But the truth is, I say, fine, the environment is there, but the child is coming from a home. So if the home is not watertight, the environment will further influence it.
The child.
So we need to have pity on children. Let me put it that way, because they are dealing with a whole lot. They are dealing with irresponsible adults in their lives. They are dealing with unavailable adults. They are dealing with ignorant adults. And they are dealing with people who know and still will not do the right thing.
Abusive adults as well.
We need to understand this. And I want to say that an abused child will perpetually become a victim if the adults in their lives do not change their orientation, their mentality, and begin to deal with children with empathy, to say, when I see a behavior in you, fine, you have the ability to do some things, but whatever I see in you is as a result of what I have put in you, what you have seen from me, and what type of environment I may have created for you.
What about a situation where the child is abused by an older child? Take for example the case of
abusing children.
Yes. Take for example the case of a 16-year-old boy and a 19-year-old boy, young man, who abused 2-year-old twins. I mean, we dealt with that story about 2 weeks ago as well. Now, you're looking at 2-year-old twins abused by their uncles, their father's younger brothers, who are living with their parents. The father was not around. Mother went to work, dropped the children at home. They're 2-year-olds with these two young men who are available. And then she discovered while she was wiping one of them, dressing the boy up, that one was complaining of pain in his anus, and led to taking both of them to the hospital. They discovered he had been abused, sodomized. The girl, the hymen was broken at 2. And you're looking at a 16-year-old. What about in a case where they were abused by children? Who takes responsibility for that?
We believe in our field that abuse runs in circle. Okay, once a child, let's say if abuse occurs once, and you do not step in to terminate the way it spreads, the abused child will become an abuser. So the 16-year-old you're talking about also was a victim. So it's a circle. So people should just look at things from a broader perspective. Every behavior, everything you see in a child runs in circle. And I keep saying it, a child cannot give you beyond what it has been given. So it's a learned behavior. And one thing people don't understand is this. I was thinking about it. Why do people canvass against children, let me use the word, not being sexually abused? Okay? Or let me break it down the way it came to my head. Why do we keep saying children should not have sex? The reason is the psychological makeup of a child cannot handle the pollution that sex brings into their brain. Well, I think I've said it before. While I was undergoing my training, we examined the brain of an abused child and the brain of the non-abused child. And the brain, the shape of the brain was different. So if a child has been polluted, let me use that word, the child can never behave like a normal child. And that's why we keep saying, if you expose these children to abuse, if you allow the child, you are distorting the mental functionality of that child. So that's why you have all manners of behavioral issues. The behavior we see in children stems, apart from the environment, stems from the brain. Okay, it's whatever the brain picks, that the brain, that the message, is sent to the body, and the action would definitely be in correlation with what has been stored in the brain. And that's why we keep saying, if you allow abuse to escape into a particular age, apart from the childhood experiences, you allow it to escape into the preteen stage. I tell you, whatever you are doing with that child, you are going to do extra to sanitize the mental state of the child, the mindset of the child, the mentality and the behavior of the child. So we say prevention. Let's prevent it right from time when they are children, when they are in their childhood, which is between the ages of 0 and 9. Okay, because everything you see from 9 to 14 is a mastered behavior from their childhood. And that's why you discover that they have lots of cognitive issues. You discover that you are giving a child instruction, the child doesn't have the ability to retain it, and the child wants to do use. That's why a lot of times children are being beaten, because you believe he or she doesn't hear word. No, a child who seemingly doesn't hear word is displaying an aftermath of abuse. You are not supposed to complicate the issue of that child by spanking, by verbally abusing. Okay, get to the root cause. Okay, there is a distortion, there is a disconnect somewhere. Abuse is responsible for it. Now, studies is beginning to show that ADHD is linked to abuse. The child becomes restless. The child doesn't just follow instruction. The child wants to explore, wants to do everything, because there's an enlargement in the part of the brain that just goes after things. They are just daring. They want to do and undo. So a child who has been polluted by abuse will not behave and cannot behave like a normal child.
All right, we've been talking about the mental health of an abused child. You have questions, you have comments, you have a situation to share with us this morning. You get to contribute on 08064738133. It's a number right there on your screen. You can call, you can SMS, you can WhatsApp, and we definitely will answer your questions or take your comments this morning. Don't forget, 08064738133 is the number. And peradventure, you're about to step out of your comfort zone, out of your home, and you want to step out this morning. If you're not driving, you can check us out on Facebook at MITVNG and watch the show while you are on your journey. However, you can go back on Facebook much later if you will be driving to watch. Please do not watch the show while you're driving. I'm pleading with you. Just go MITVNG on Facebook. You will definitely be able to watch the show all through the day. It doesn't matter when, the video would remain there. All right, coming back to the studio to talk about this, don't forget 08064738133 is the number to call, SMS or WhatsApp. Coming back to the studio, Auntie Wemi, I'm just concerned a little bit because we're talking about abused children, and you did say prevention is better than sorting it out.
Yeah.
But in a situation where it has already happened, are these children redeemable?
Well, I'll say that we are not supposed to give up on an individual. Okay, they are redeemable. However, you're going to put in a lot of effort. It's not quite easy to redeem a child who has been sexually abused repeatedly.
What about physical abuse?
Physical abuse also. Okay, they learn, they become aggressive. they become repulsive to love. Okay, because physical abuse damages something in children that makes them believe that brings about, let me say, destructive nature. Okay, because they were damaged physically, and usually most of this physical abuse don't go away. It stays, it leaves mark on them. And at the end of the day, once the child sees the mark, the child remembers the situation and remembers the person. And if the child is not removed from the environment, and the person does not like, you want to fill up the emotion of that child with love to buy back what you have done, the child may likely come up with a destructive mentality. Okay, they destroy human being because they felt destroyed, because they felt unloved. Let me use it that way. And at the end of the day, you cannot get anything good, because they believe if they did this to me, then I can do this to someone else.
What of in a situation that they now take the child? They say, and they take the child to a juvenile center.
There are some children who their personalities are naturally tough. Okay. There are some children who are born. Let me use the word. They are very strong-willed. Some people use the word they are difficult children. The truth is, once you observe that this child has the tendency to be difficult, then you as an adult in the life of that child, you need to get knowledge about how to channel the difficult tendencies of a child into the strength of that child. And that's what a lot of people don't use. Every personality you see every personality has the traits you see in a child has its very good and fantastic side. Okay, so I'm saying a child is difficult, a child is tough, a child doesn't listen. Okay, those are the weaknesses of that personality. But you could actually flip it. Just discover the language the child understands. Just discover the tool using. If only you could be patient. If only you could have a goal of the outcome you want for that child, then you will achieve it. But we easily give up on children. You just assume this is where the child. And one thing is, once you begin to lead a child with assumption, you have lost your authority as a parent in the life of that child, because there is a power you have handed over to that child. Because children can preempt adults. They tell just to have their ways. They will do something to lead you in another direction so that they could have their way. Okay, so if you discover that a child is, in quote, difficult, change your strategy. You don't have to be difficult to deal with a difficult child.
Unfortunately,
it doesn't work.
Well, let me come to Mariam here. Unfortunately, we grew up in an environment where people attack difficulty with difficulty. The more difficult the child is, the more difficult the parents decide to be. And I remember that there was a day we were having a conversation here, and we're talking about correcting a child, and we're talking about a difficult child, correcting a difficult child. And I was saying that parents coming together to beat together a child that is difficult.
The father and the mother.
The father and the mother beating the same child. As mother is slapping, the father is kicking or using belts, and the two of them gang up. I call it gang up on the child to correct this one child. And I was saying that this is an anomaly. Why can't one person correct the child?
The outcome of that thing is the child, if they do not watch it, permit me to say it, that child may kill them someday.
But do you know that we have, okay, let me say this, in this kind of society we happen to find ourselves, the way we are raised is different. We have a toxic environment, and we have toxic people around us.
You don't want to say we have toxic parents. I like you, she did not want to say toxic parents.
No matter how hard you try to raise a child with love and so much, I want to pamper, I want to, see, I've come to realize that children here, they need the special treatment.
What type of special treatment?
You know, the kind of special treatment I'm about to say is if or when a father chastises the child, let the mother support the father there. Not when the father is trying to rebuke an act of the child and the mother says, don't beat him.
No, that's not what we're saying.
You know, we argued that, and after the show,
That's
so many people said blah blah
That's
blah.
an ideal situation from a
Just do it.
functional home. We have a lot of dysfunctional homes today, and that's one of the situations we are having with children today. You know, so if you have it functioning, as in, you know, not a dysfunctional situation, the father is correcting whether he is right or wrong. The mother will allow the father to finish. But in a situation where you have everything upside down, it doesn't work that way.
It does not work, Wemi, but then at least you should do something that will make it work at that point in time. I support the fact that the father spanks and the mother spanks at the same time. I support it.
Do you know why it is wrong?
It is wrong, though. From my own perspective, it is
because
right. But then after the whole thing, the whole event, and you can just call your child, tell him or her, you know, I don't support what you're doing. You can actually advise.
You know, there's a place.
But I for one support the fact that let the parents, both parents, spank.
But there is a place.
At the same time.
A lot of times,
what if when you're spanking the child?
Okay,
what if something happens to the child?
Do you know that? Let me tell you.
That is what we have now. I should be telling you that. My mom is wicked. My dad is wicked.
No, because that don't happen. Imagine as an adult right now. I made that analogy that day because a lot of people didn't understand. One of the reasons why we grew up loving our father more than our mother. Even though our mother was the one that was with us physically in the house all the time.
In some homes, the fathers are the ones that beat.
That's what I'm saying. Can I say something? What I'm saying is, in my own case, my mother was the beater of the family.
Exactly.
And as a matter of fact, I was the person who my mother beats the most, and my mother up to the time
I don't have bitter, but I have disciplinarians.
I have two bitters in my family, my uncle and my mom. And when my mom is done beating you, she will pass you over to my uncle who will beat you extra.
So are you saying? Let me not tell you.
No, I'm pointing out to you in clear terms because I'm divulging my own emotion as a growing young adult. Till the time I was 21, I told my mother one day while I was about 20, and my aunties were there. I said, on my wedding day, I don't want you to be there. I told her, I said, you're a very wicked person. Because my mother would beat me to the point that when my father sees me, he will be crying. You did this to my child.
Is no longer
because you know exactly that's what we're saying.
Ask mommy. Maybe she's trying to bring some things.
That's what I'm saying. She was trying to teach something. Now imagine that at that point in time,
that's no longer teaching. So.
No, but hold on. This is what I'm saying. Now imagine that at the time when she was actually beating me. Let us assume that my father was also beating me at the same time.
Now, can I come in there?
You don't beat like you want to kill the child. Now there's difference between the.
So that's what you're saying. Do you get it?
Spanking
do you know? I know. I have a cousin. I have a cousin whose father used to beat them with the leg of a stool. Yes, the leg of a stool for not playing. Yes. Leg of a stool. He would take the stool and be beaten. Are you saying the wife should join at that point in time to beat too?
No, my own beating did.
That's what I'm saying. Support your spouse, whoever it is that is the beater, to correct the child, but do not physically abuse your child. If one person is holding koboko and the other person is wielding slap, what can the koboko not do that the slap is doing? You're already holding a koboko to beat a child or a pankere to beat a child. What do you need slap for at the same time? Do you know some people enter the house with their children, open clothes, remove everything, and they start boxing their children? Do you know some people do it? And then at the end of the day, when that child leaves, the day the child leaves their house is the last day they see the child. The child will now start telling them that they marry, no problem, because he has written them off. That's what I mean by don't beat at the same time. Not like
but should beating determine that you want to do this, some like you saying, I don't want my parents anymore, I don't want to.
Beating can.
Why?
Because some children were so abused to the point by their parents in the name of correction, to the point where they hated their parents.
But why
and
can't
the emotion
the child also change?
from what they say don't
From-
pray. I just told you that because a child was not praying wakati marun adura, that the father was beating with a stool.
You to pray wakati mara now, so that you won't be beating
I mean,
with
was
the
because,
stool.
and this is the child that was in the university.
Okay.
Oh yeah, now. And I'm telling you a real life story. This is a real life story, somebody that I know very well.
But you know, in this
At the
part
end of the day, the
world,
child
I will
changed
keep saying
from
that
being a
in this-
Muslim to becoming a
in
Christian.
this
What
part
the
of the
father was
world,
trying to
there are
avoid.
some things that you just have to do to support your parents, one, and to also show them that
Enduring beating.
yes,
Enduring beating is one of them.
perseverance, yes. You have to tell them that you love them, and when you're no longer
let
there,
me
you
tell
can
you.
just. I'm serious.
I am ready to pity millions children.
Just no. I see. My mommy don't beat you, but you will fast by force by fire. Yes,
That is
if you
also
offend her,
abuse.
you will fast. You fast. If you are meant to, break your fast by 12, she will make it 3 or 6. Especially when
is
you.
also an abuse.
Yes, so especially when you refuse to pray, like you said. Oh my
That is
God.
also an abuse.
You will fast. That shows, religion in this part of the world is what we carry on our head. So I'm sorry I have to say this on air, but parents,
Religion, not following your parents' religion
is one thing they hate.
It's a crime.
It is a crime. I
Auntie,
tell you, it is a crime. Sometimes if I don't go and pray in my salat and all of those things, and you hear, they fake go. They fell low. I just have to wear my kimar. Oh yeah.
Because we want to go. I mean, our parents actually win all kinds of powers over us anyway.
See,
but let's go back to Auntie
what
here.
I was
We just painted different scenarios for you.
It's good. These are some of the things that are happening, and then some are still happening. But the thing there is, what a child would do, he or she will still do. It's not by beating and all of that. You see, this issue of beating is a controversy. It's controversial when you want to discuss it. A lot of people still believe you have to beat. Beating is discipline and this and that and that. I think is a topic that one should
Actually delve
focus
into
on deliberately.
beating and discipline.
But what we need to know is there are times when you're beating a child and then you're aggressive about it. You are doing it from the zone of anger. And there's nothing you do from the zone of anger that you will not do destructively. So a lot of times when you believe you want to correct in that child, you are complicating the issue much more. You are
Like
not
parents who
correcting
say,
anything.
my son is stubborn, they pick up a blade and then they put a mark and they put pepper on
When
it.
you do that, you are fortifying the will power of that child in the negative direction.
I even think you're helping the child to
If
endure
the
pain.
child holds back, you are either instilling fear in the child, that fear, okay, or the child becomes more toxic.
Auntie Wemi, so for children who can open their bodies to find 3, 4, 5 marks of when their parents put blades to mark them and put pepper on it on their bodies, would you say that child is completely well?
It's not, because you see what we're doing is you are actually feeding the monster or the beast in that child. You know when the scripture says that there is what is this thing? There is foolishness in every child. It is natural for children to want to test the waters, but when you do not allow them in the right direction, conversation, discipline, okay, if you must spank, you must let the child know the reason
why you want to spank.
After doing that, you must have a conversation with the child. Let the child open his or her mouth and tell you what he or she has done, because at times they don't even understand what they have done
or what you're beating them for.
But some children understand, so
they don't know what they have done. As in, okay, let me use the word, the consequences okay,
of what they have done.
How about the children that knows that, okay, this I have done is very wrong, and you've corrected them like 2, 3, 4 times?
You spank.
How would you
You
handle
explain
such a
and you
child?
spank.
Then you change your style of communication. It's either you are not getting through to the child, or there's something that is disconnecting between you and that child, that is not making the child do it. There is a story of it. See, there is no individual, including you, me, that grew up that did not want to try something.
Bad.
Okay?
Extremely
now,
bad.
She was trying to say her mother beats, her daddy doesn't beat. It's the same with me. But what if I let you know that between my parents, okay, both of them, I listen more to my father who doesn't beat.
Yeah, same here.
Than my mother. There are some things I can preempt.
Until I became a
I said
fool.
she's going to, this is what she would do.
I already
that is
know.
what my mother would do.
I already know. My mother has different types of kids.
But the day,
I already know appropriate punishment
the
for
day
whatever.
my
And
father,
she has imagination, very strong imagination. If you come late, my mother has,
you know. So we need to understand
what
that
happened.
even us,
and she will impose that assumption on you until you confess that was what actually happened. So there are times you lie to satisfy her so that you can kukuma be beaten because what she wants to do is to beat you. But by the time you leave that stage, and she now saw the kind of aggression that I had I didn't like my mother as a teenage girl. I grew up not liking my mother until I was about 20, 21.
Can I chip in something?
Then my mother changed strategy, especially with me. Then we began to have I will call my period started as a little girl. I called my father, not my mom. And my mom was living in the same house. My dad was traveling and coming back. But it was my dad I told, not my mom. And she felt bad. Those are some of the little things.
Can I just say something? Now, see, when you introduce beating, spanking, cutting, and all of that, you are disconnecting the child from you. What you intend to correct, you are using the very wrong approach. Okay, there is a place to spank. There is the place to, but becoming aggressive towards a child is very, very uncalled for. Now, when you do that, the connection you are having, let me say the emotional connection, the empathy of a child, because every child has empathy towards their parents, you've killed it. And that's why they will do a lot of things to please themselves without putting you into consideration.
Some don't even use
can I just finish that? See, there are times that I want to do, there are some decisions I would have loved to take. When I remember my father, I don't want to hurt his feeling. But there are some things I'm like, if it has to do with my mother, then nothing. It's not as if I was a bad child, but you just know that there are some things you do within some age group, especially when you're a teenager. You just don't care. So it took me years to deliberately reabsorb my mother back into my emotional space. But my dad doesn't have to lift a pin
to correct you.
His place is there, and he is not an innocent person.
It's true.
He has his ways. So we are saying that parents who are watching or listening right now, change your strategy. That's what we're saying. Change your strategy. Because at the end of the day, women will say, I suffered over this child.
And this child
now loves, especially single parents who are mothers. When you introduce hardcore dealings with that child, the child will begin to long for the other parent that did not even labor over him or her.
So the first opportunity they
go for
run after.
And in psychology, there is a place of children becoming saturated. Okay, especially when they are always with one parent. They want the other parent. So if your dealing is also pushing that child towards the other parent, then you will lose all your effort on that child. So change your strategy, basically.
And it's quite interesting most times that parents do not necessarily, understand what we're talking about. People do feel again and again that what we're saying is don't correct the child, don't beat your child. No, I have kids and I spank. when there is need to spank. But you see, the moment I take anything to spank, they already know, hey, something has gone wrong. Because we do everything that has to do with communication. You will explain what happened.
You know the way
you
you
will
were
write
speaking
it down.
now? I remember when my mom is beating you, she doesn't beat you, she beats you with words. As in, she's beating you physically, and she's also using words. So you are not just crying from the pain
Physical
of the pain of
also
beating. You are
pained.
also being psychologically affected. Some children, they cry much more from the things they say to them than the beating they gave to them. So you are complicating
And
the
they
issue
remember.
much more.
What are you talking
Remember
about?
what you say.
I'm telling you, I remember how I was beaten. You think I don't have marks, but I remember. So imagine if it were physical words, if it were words that were spoken. Some kids remember their parents tomorrow for the wrong negative words that they exuded, that they kept telling them. Even when the kid turns out right and successful, they second guess themselves based on the things that had been planted in them when they were children. They actually do feel that, am I really successful? So you see somebody that is obvious to the human side as being very successful, but the person still doubts that success because by the measures of the words that were spoken to him or her when he was a child, he did not have the capacity.
Most people
to
who
succeed
fall into
like that.
depression today. Now, you remember the story about the celebrity?
Yes,
the issue. If the story turns out to be true, then it could have been an accumulated childhood mental stress. Not now. So a lot of people we cover up a lot of things. And you just go into it, and you get to a point where your mental capacity will break down. You can't stretch it for too long a time. And that's why we say, let's fill the emotional bank of children with love. Okay? Love doesn't mean you will not correct the child, but fill it up so that it will give them the ability to become resilient in life and move on with life. They accept themselves. Their self-worth is not punctured. Even when it's shaky, they still know that, okay, this was how, like there was a movie I watched of a girl who left home. The mother had died. The father loved her quite well, but she just wanted a different life.